noticed that some people just seem to attract money on autopilot? Well, stick around because in today's episode of the Clairwood podcast, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can program your brain for money attraction. If making more money is on your radar, make sure you check out my manifesting challenge coming up very soon. Over 3 days, I'll be taking you through how you can call an additional $5,000 into your business ASAP. And the cool thing is, the strategies that you learn in this challenge can be used on autopilot to manifest and attract even more money. On day one, you'll be learning how you can smash through the limiting money mindset beliefs that you have that have been holding you back from the money that you want. On day two, you'll be learning money magnet strategies, mind-blowing strategies to shift your energy from feeling broke to wealthy, and you'll be unlocking your $5,000 blueprint. This is your step-by-step plan to attract an additional $5,000 of profit. And on day three, you'll be creating your money growth strategy. I mean, the $5,000 is just the beginning. So this is a sustainable plan to keep the money flowing into your business bank account. So let's talk about money attraction. One of the cool things you may or may not have heard of is neuroplasticity. If you aren't familiar with what that is, or you need a refresher, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and adapt. Our brains are able to change and evolve and grow new neural pathways. This can be because you've had some sort of brain injury or accident or something that's happened, or alternatively, it can just be something that you do consciously. You say, hey, I want to learn a new skill. And our brain is able to form these new pathways. Some happen through experience, and often what can happen as we are forming these new neural pathways is that our old connections can be eliminated. And this process is called synaptic pruning. So basically what this means is that if we aren't using our brain, parts of it are going to die away. Those neural connections are no longer going to exist. But if we are continuing to learn new skills, learn new ways of thinking, etc., we are forming new neural pathways. There is a whole bunch of really interesting science around this if you want to go deeper and find out more. One particular resource that I love, if you are interested in this topic, is a book called Limitless by Jim Kwik. So Jim had a brain injury, he had an accident as a child, and he went on a mission to learn more about how the brain works. And so he's become an expert in learning how you can upgrade your brain. It's a really fascinating book. Anyway, the reason I share all of this is that a lot of times we think we are stuck in our current circumstances. We can feel trapped by the cards that we were dealt in life. And we might think that our past dictates our path moving forward. However, when you step back and think about it, you can really start to identify that this isn't actually true. Let me share a story about a friend of mine. My friend unfortunately had her son very early. He was so tiny. When I remember that he was in ICU for ages, months, I believe. And even when he was finally out of hospital and I went to visit, he was so tiny, like the size of my hand. And very lucky to have survived. However, he didn't have as long to develop, and he is on the autism spectrum. He's a beautiful, lovely boy. However, particularly many years ago, he really struggled with social situations with anger outbursts, and he really had some challenges. Now, my friend and her husband, quite wealthy, and they were very blessed to be in a position to be able to invest in getting him a lot of support. He's done a lot of work with psychologists, OTs, you name it, physios, you name it. He's done a lot of work, and they actually sent him to a special school where he was able to get specialized care. My friend just said she's so incredibly grateful for the progress that he's been able to make. And again, such a privilege that they were able to support him in that way. But she said, he's now able to socialize normally, and he's now able to hang out with other children and a lot of things that he wasn't able to do earlier on. The reason why I wanted to share this is to show that doing the work, that learning new patterns, learning new ways of doing things can actually create really different outcomes in some areas. Another example I wanted to share. A friend of mine recently shared with me that she's not able to drive long distances. And I asked her, I said, well, did something happen? What's the reason that you can't drive long distances anymore? And she shared that something happened 5, 6 years ago, I believe it was, where she forgot where she was going. And essentially her subconscious mind created a really negative story around driving. And these days she really just doesn't feel comfortable driving in unfamiliar areas. When I shared with her about my car accident, she was absolutely dumbfounded that I'm able to drive already, 2 years after the accident. But as I explained to her, I went through intense therapy to work on my brain. I was doing a lot of work with a psychotherapist who helped me to find the parts of my brain where the trauma had been stored and to form new stories, to override those beliefs, those subconscious beliefs. Now, I just want to be super clear here and say, look, I totally acknowledge and recognize that not every injury, disability, circumstance, etc., plays out in these ways. The reason I shared these stories is to share that our brains have a powerful ability to change, evolve, and adapt and create drastically different outcomes in our lives. Let me share another example around how our beliefs can change. So my kids, like most children these days, love YouTube. They're only allowed very limited amounts of it because, quite frankly, I think a lot of it is just crap. But my kids love their YouTube time and they both want to become famous YouTubers. Now, I used to think, what are you actually doing? A lot of YouTube's just, it's guff. It's nonsense, particularly the stuff that children watch. And my son was like, that's what I want to do for a job. And I thought, well, you've still got to go to school and get an education and, don't you want to go to university and have something to fall back on? But one of the things that really started to change my mind about, wow, there's actually a really big career in this. One of the YouTubers that they particularly love, his name is Mr. Beast. He is arguably the most famous YouTuber there is. And anyway, Mr. Beast has become YouTube's first billionaire. Doesn't that just blow your mind? And when my kids said that, I'm like, oh, nonsense. And I went and checked, and sure enough, he is. And then I started to research about what other YouTubers make as well. And it really, in a moment, changed my mind about the power of the platform of YouTube. Now, let's be clear. I am still making sure that my children get their education and, keep their options open at this point in time. But the reason I wanted to share that is that sometimes something can happen and in a moment, it really reshapes everything about how you believe about something. and particularly in the space of money. I did a recent episode of Money Talk, the lives that I do on Instagram each week, about money traumas, and I'm going to link it in the show notes for today's episode. In that episode of Money Talk, I explain how money traumas have an effect on our relationship with money, on our belief system around money, and how unless we identify and recognize them, those traumas, whether they're big traumas or micro traumas, sit in our subconscious belief system and affect the way that we show up in the space of money. You have had a whole lifetime of experiences, some positive, some obviously not so positive, but a whole lifetime of experiences can be changed by witnessing or having an experience that happens in a moment. Think about it, a breakup, friendship falling apart, starting a business. We have these moments and suddenly everything shifts for us. Sometimes our minds become changed subconsciously without us even realizing it. But we can also choose to have new beliefs. So when I had my car accident, my brain after the car accident, when I first went to drive, my subconscious mind was like, oh my gosh, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. I literally thought just from driving around my local back streets, my subconscious mind was in absolute state of panic. It was like, please get out of the car, we're going to die. Now, after a lot of therapy, I've been able to recognize, hey, that unhelpful belief that I had is realistically pretty unlikely. And, even if I were to die in a car accident, it's not helpful at all for me to spend my life in fear. And so what I wanted to do, I made a choice that I wanted to override those subconscious beliefs. I made a choice. I want to choose to get back into a car and drive again. Because trust me, as someone who went months and months without being able to drive, it's a pain in the backside. You got kids to drop, you want to go do anything. It's really challenging to get around, particularly where I live. So a lot of the work that I did with my therapist was around changing those belief systems and then actually taking action, doing the thing, getting in the car, driving again and again. And the first time I did it was absolutely freaking terrifying. And then I did it again and again and again. And guess what? I rarely think about it anymore. Like something would have to happen, like someone skids on their brakes or something for it to even register in my mind, because the new neural pathways have been formed. And it's just like, this is just something I do without even really thinking about it. And it's the same with money. I have programmed my mind to have absolute faith that everything will always work out for me. So even when things aren't going to plan, even when things are challenging, I have this deep-seated belief that everything will always work out for me. And guess what? It does. Even when money is tight, I can choose to lean in and invest again in my business. I can choose to trust that my craziest dreams will come true, even if there is no evidence to it being possible just yet. So how can you start to create shifts in your thinking? How can you be on autopilot thinking the best rather than the worst? Well, the first step is to actually notice, to become aware of your thoughts. What is your autopilot thinking? I sometimes forget how much work I've done in this space. And then when I hang out with, someone new, they might get a parking ticket and they're like, oh, why does bad stuff always happen to me? And it's in those micro moments that I realize, wow, I've come a long way. If I get a parking ticket, which I did recently, I think, bugger, life lesson. Lucky I've got the money to afford it. That reminds me, I actually learned that from Denise Duffield-Thomas, who was one of my first money mentors and now a friend of mine. She has this saying, which is lucky we're rich. And whenever anything crappy happens, she goes, lucky we're rich. It's just a fun little way of reframing when something crappy happens. So the point I was trying to make, the first step is noticing. What am I thinking about? What's the default thing that I think when times are tough, a client leaves, someone tells me my prices are too much? What's the first step? Notice what is the first thing that you think. And there are a whole bunch of steps that go into reprogramming your subconscious beliefs. I'm actually going to be opening my Ultimate Mindset course, Accelerator, again very soon. So if you do want to go deeper in this work, make sure you keep your eyes peeled for when I open the doors for Accelerator. But noticing those beliefs, changing your words, changing your company, because the people that you're around have a lot of impact on the way that you think on autopilot. And this is why finding the right mentor as well is so important. Having someone, being surrounded by inspiring, uplifting people who are thinking in a different way around money. You want to be surrounded by that kind of energy. And the next thing is learn the tools around money mindset, around manifestation. Learn how to use mindset, energetics, and taking action to create new and more positive outcomes when it comes to your money. And the last little thing that I do want to share with you is recognize that so much around mindset is perception. Two different people can have exactly the same thing happen to them and perceive it in a completely different way. So really reflect on how you are looking at situations. Are you in a space of gratitude? When something bad happens, you go, wow, even if I can't see it right now, there must be a powerful lesson in this. Or are you living in a state of lack, desire, focusing on everything you don't have rather than what you do have? When you upgrade your thinking, you upgrade your entire life and your ability to make more money. Today's just been a little bit of a teaser of the power of money mindset, around how you can start to notice how you think about money and start to shift it. If you do want to take this work deeper, I'd love to invite you to come along to my free 3-day challenge, How to Manifest $5,000 and Beyond. The link to join is in the show notes for today's episode. I will be running through the challenge live. You have the opportunity as well to win some cash if you come along to the calls live. So please go and check it out via the link in the show notes for today's episode. And in the meantime, I hope that this episode has inspired you to start to change your relationship with money so that you can become a money magnet.